Welcome to yet another edition of the Stats and Stacks podcast, where today we're going over UFC Vegas 105, Emmett versus Murphy. First things first, make sure you smash that like button. Give a follow over on Twitter, over on Instagram, over on TikTok, wherever there's social media. There's a Stats and Stacks podcast, a little bit of a different location today, kind of like last week, I believe. But it is what it is. We're going to do whatever we can, whatever we need to do to get that pod out to you each and every week. And that was important last week because one of our dogs lost and one of our locks lost, but the rest of the card was right. We still got 11 out of the 13 fights right. Unfortunately, one of the ones in Christian Rodriguez that we were confident in did not come through, but everything else did. So it was still a very, very profitable night, and that's why you can't just go off of Twitter. Gotta listen to the pod and get the analysis on everything. And while you're there, you might as well like, share, subscribe, the whole ordeal. At the end of the day, we're back in the Apex UFC Vegas 105, and not a lot of great fights on here, but a lot of interesting ones on the betting perspective. 13 fights again, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it and not waste any time. Very, very first fight of the night is controversy already. We have Loma Lukbume at minus 800 going up against Estela Nunez at plus 500. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 300. Under 2.5 at plus 220. Let's start with Luma Lukbume. She's someone I like and who we've been making a lot of money on as of late. She's 29 years old. She has good striking. She's fought a good level of competition thus far in the UFC. Her jiu-jitsu used to be her kryptonite, but she's been working on it. She left Tiger Muay Thai, has been training at Syndicate her last two or three fights. And you do see her grappling improving. We saw her submit, I believe it was Elise Reed over in Australia last year or the year before. She also has a 72% takedown defense now. And she'll sprinkle in a takedown here and there just to secure the round. She doesn't put her singlet on. She doesn't go out there and try to just grapple the whole time. But if it's a close round, she will go out there and get the takedown to secure the win. Her cardio's good. I like everything about her except for two things. One, I don't like how low she keeps her hands. They're always like by her hips. Not a fun in case you ever fight to power punch her, but her chin, her durability holds up. So it doesn't matter yet. But if someone cracks that code, just be wary of that. And the biggest issue with Luma is something she won't be able to address, her size. She's tiny. She used to fight at atom weight, which is 105. And if there was an atom weight, we say it every time. If there was an atom weight division, she might be atom weight champ, in all honesty. But there isn't. So she has to bump up and fight up a weight class each and every time she's out there. She's successful at it. But Loopy was able to just size bully her way to a victory. Angela Hill, a little bit of the same using her range. So Luma's very, very talented. She is a top 10 girl. It's just that's her ceiling because of how small she is. Good news in this matchup is that she's fighting Estela Nunez, who also used to fight at atomweight. She's 32 years old, and although she's small too, she has a 4.5 inch reach advantage over Luma here. She has really, really good striking, very, very high volume. She does have a record that shows 0-4 in the UFC, and you're thinking she has a 6-5 record overall. She's 0-4. Why is she still here? Why is she getting a fight? Because she's good, man. She's 0-4. It might be the best first round fighter I've ever seen in women's MMA. She's never lost a first round. And she hasn't had easy competition. She fought Ariana Canalosi, Sam Hughes, Victoria Dudikova, Yasmin Jauregui. Like she's fighting good fighters, and she goes out there and dominates round one. And then all hell breaks loose. Although she has good volume and good striking, she does not have good cardio. She does not have good jujitsu. She does not have good wrestling. She's rocking a 50% takedown defense. She's quick as shit, and she's a really, really, really good counter striker. But again, if you don't have cardio in women's MMA, you have an issue. And she's taking this fight on short notice. He was originally slated to fight Molly McCann that got flipped around, and now she's taking this one on short notice. And we haven't seen her in 2 years because the last time she was in the octagon, it was just a freak accident. Dudikova, who I was hoping she would beat, actually tried to go for a takedown. Estella tried to stuff the takedown and put her arm out, and her arm just snapped in half. Kind of like you want to think about like Anderson Silva's leg, how it was going the opposite way when his shin bone snapped. That's what her arm looked like. It was absolutely disgusting. It was grotesque, and that was the end of her fighting career for 2 years. But now she's back, and she's 0-4. Her career, or her at least in the UFC, has to be on the line. Um, she backs up a lot, but that's because she's such a good counter striker. She is one of the best counter strikers I've ever seen. This girl should not be 0-4. The Ariana Conolisi fight, she was winning. She gassed out. She got choked out. Sam Hughes, that was a really, really close fight. That could have gone either way. Yasmin Hiragui, she went out there, knocked her down in round one, and just couldn't get the finish. And then we have the arm break. So she's had a lot of misfortune, a lot of bad luck, and a lot of that is due to her cardio. She's so good. I love this girl. I think she's a UFC caliber 110%, but she doesn't have a UFC caliber gas tank, and that's what keeps alluring that first UFC win. It's just hard for me to believe that a girl like this is going to go 0-5 in the UFC. You might call me crazy, but minus 800 on Luma. I love Luma. Luma should win this fight, but this line is out of control. This is a complete dog or pass situation. And it's the first fight of the night, and all hell always breaks loose on the first night, or first fight. So the pick will be Loma. I'm not betting Loma at minus 800. I'll go ahead and I'll bet Estela Nunez. And if you want to get real crazy, it's going to be a predominantly striking affair. I might take a little poke at Estela Nunez by split decision. They're both really good strikers, but Estela throws more. Loma's usually a little lower volume, being that Muay Thai specialist. And if she hits just as hard and has a little more volume, they might give her the round over Luma's one takedown. So it'll be interesting. The pick is going to be Luma, but there's no way I'm touching it. If anything, I'm betting Estela Nunez at those odds. Next fight of the night, we have more women's MMA. We have Vanessa Demopoulos and Talita Alankar at a straight pick'em homie. Over 2.5 minus 435, under 2.5 at plus 290. Let's start with Talita Alankar. Talita Alankar is a world-class jiu-jitsu practitioner. That's about it. Her wrestling's okay. She has a nice single leg on her, but that's about it. Does not have cardio. She slows down in every single one of her fights. She does not have good striking. It looks like she hits decently hard, but she doesn't really know what she's doing with it. So she's just an okay wrestler with world-class jiu-jitsu, no striking to speak of, no cardio. She's extremely hittable. She's 34 years old. There's a lot to not like about Alan Carr, but she is an absolute whiz on the ground. If she can get you to the ground, you are in trouble, a la Vanessa Demopoulos. Vanessa Demopoulos is also very, very good on the ground. She's a BJJ black belt, but there's levels to this shit. Alan Carr is so much better on the ground than even black belt Demopoulos. But Demopoulos does have okay striking. She'll definitely have a striking advantage in this matchup. Her wrestling's trash. 27% takedown defense. That is not good. She's gone the fight ready and such to try to work on that. It didn't work. She went over to Factory X Muay Thai. She's just gym hopping everywhere to try to find herself. She's extremely hittable on the feet, but she's durable. She blocks punches with her face, but she's never been knocked out. Um, so I just love her, man. It's a little insane. You look at technically on paper, she has won one, two, three, four. She's won 5 fights in the UFC. And in all honesty, you can kind of go against all of them. Silva Gomez Suarez, she won fair and square, but she got dropped and snapped up an armbar and got real lucky. Jin Yu Frey, she won a split decision that I personally thought she lost, but the judges love her. Maria Oliveira, she beat. I have nothing going on there. But then she lost to Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and she lost to Kanaka Murata in one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in UFC history. Absolutely robbed Kanaka blind, and then decided that was fun and did it again with a split decision win over Emily Ducote, costing her job. Emily Ducote won that fight. I completely disagree with the judges. So at that point, she realistically only has one UFC like legitimate win, and it was after she basically got KO'd and snapped. It was kind of like um, the fight over in London, Shayna Bannon, and Pooja Tomar, where Pooja basically KO'd her, went for the ground and pound finish, and then got armbarred. That is exactly what happened with Vanessa Demopoulos, and Torres. And then her last fight, the Jacqueline Amorim fight. Now, this one's important because Jacqueline Amorim and Talita Alencar are the exact same fighter. They fight exactly the same way. They low-key look alike. Alencar is just smaller with less muscle. Jacqueline is obviously bigger with more muscle. Otherwise, they fight exactly the same way. They are both from Brazil. We've seen this fight. Jacqueline went out there, got the takedown, and then the infamous grabbing of the gloves. She did cheat 110%. She grabbed inside the gloves, which you're not allowed to do. And Vanessa ultimately couldn't defend herself and get armbarred. Was she going to get armbarred regardless? It's possible, but she got taken down pretty easily, and that's a concern. Even if she didn't get armbarred, if Alan Carr is able to just stay on top and ride her out, it's not difficult to take Vanessa Demopoulos down. So for that reason, I know Vanessa does nothing but rob people on the judges' scorecards, but she's overdue. She's due to get screwed one of these times. So the pick is going to be Alan Carr. The bet is going to end up being Alan Carr, but not a lot of confidence. Next fight of the night, we have Victor Henry at minus 205 going up against Pedro Falco at plus 175. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5, minus 260. Under 2.5, plus 200. Let's start with Falco. Falco is a jiu-jitsu guy who's fighting in MMA, kind of like Andre Petrowski or kind of like a um, Damian Maya. Like these guys are very, very, very good, world class on the ground, but they can't strike to save their lives. Can't really wrestle. That's what Pedro exactly is. He is a third degree black belt. He's 32 years old, so he's in his prime. He's at a good camp in Novo União, but his striking's not really good. It's not good at all. It's serviceable, but it's more or less there for show, so that he can get the takedown and finish. His wrestling's not good at all to get it down to the ground, so that's an issue. BJJ world class, but he just has difficulty getting it there. He's extremely durable, but he has no volume whatsoever. Throws under two significant strikes per minute. His cardio seems okay, but he can slow down a touch, but he can go 15 minutes. But he's really just a BJJ guy who is trying to get paid in MMA. On the other side, we have Victor Henry, who's 37 years old. I don't like that, but he will have a 2-inch reach advantage. I do like. He's the much better striker. He is a good striker. He went tit for tat with Hani Barcelos, impressive in getting the W. So he's a good striker, much better striker. His takedown defense, 84%, which is solid because he fought some decent wrestlers. Javid, the fight ended before he had a chance, but Tony Gravely, you have Rafael Sunsao, Ronnie Yaya, all these guys want to go out there and try to take you down. Even Hani Barcelos, like these guys want to take you down and finish you there. And he's a good wrestler. He trains with Josh Barnett. His counter wrestling is on point. That catch wrestling comes in handy. He's just a little bit of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. When he fought Ronnie Barcelos, he looked world class. He fought his next fight against Rafael Sunsao, who was like 40 years old at the time, and gave away the win with bad takedown defense. His next fight, he fought a better wrestler and did better against a takedown and looked great against Tony Gravely. Then his next fight, he gets nut shotted by Javid Basharat, but it was not going well for him. Next fight, he fights old man Ronnie Yaya, absolutely dominates. And then the next fight, he gets submitted with a guillotine choke in the second round by Charles Jourdain. So he has one loss, win, loss, win, loss in every single one of his UFC fights. He looks great some fights, he looks bad others. Good news is he lost his last fight. So if the pattern continues, he's due for a win. He throws a ton of volume. You can chin check him. I don't know if he's ever been KO'd. I'd have to look at it. But I have seen him rocked on multiple occasions. But he has really, really, really good cardio. That's more or less the best weapon he has here. And if he's the better wrestler with the better cardio and the better striker, he has all the advantages outside of jiu-jitsu. But he's dictating where this fight is taking place. And for that, I'll go ahead and I'll trust Victor Henry. I'm going to pick Victor Henry, and I'm going to bet Victor Henry. Next fight of the night is one I keep going back and forth on. We have Reese McKee at plus 135 going up against Daniel Frunza at minus 160. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 plus 110. Under 2.5 at minus 145. Let's start with Skeletor. Reese McKee, he's someone who has had 4 fights in the UFC and they've all been really, really tough. They're Hamzat Chimaev, they're Alex Morono, they're Chini Njokuani. Who did he lose to before that? And Lusa. These aren't big names, but very, very difficult matchups. Ultimately, he's a very good striker. He's 29 years old. He's massive for the weight class, and will have a 5 inch reach advantage here. He predicates his game on cardio and Homer Simpsoning and just being able to outlast you. Just a little rope a dope action. He's one of the slowest starters I've ever seen in UFC. We talked about Estella never losing a round one. I don't know if Reese McKee has ever won a round one, so be wary of that. It may be a live bet is better for this situation. He's extremely hittable. His jiu-jitsu is okay, but his takedown defense is not, sitting at a smooth 41%. He also does not get knocked out all the time, but can get chin checked in basically every single one of his fights. We had Morono chin checked him, Angelusa chin checked him real bad. And I don't think Chidi did, but there was a lot of grappling that entire fight, which also proved that he cannot wrestle to save his life. He loves to march forward. But he's not great when he's backing up. He can only fight in one direction. If you're pressuring forward, he seems to struggle. He prefers to be the one dictating the pace, and that's an issue because Daniel Franza, he generally goes forward and pressures. If he's able to do so, that definitely helps his sake here. This is his first UFC fight, but he's not a prospect. He's 30 years old. This is basically the finished product of Daniel Franza. He has good striking. He has great cardio. That's about it. He has zero jujitsu, and his wrestling takedown defense isn't great. Like McKee, I'm not really showing any knockouts on his record, but he has been chin checked and floored in like three of the fights I watched, so do be cognizant of that. And McKee's not the greatest wrestler, but Frunza might be even worse, so I don't know if he'll be able to keep this on the feet or not. If they stand on the feet the whole time, I think it's like a 55 to 60% chance that Frunza wins. If Reese is able to mix it in and out with the wrestling and the BJJ and the striking and blend everything together. I think it's a 50-50 fight. And for that, I'll pick Daniel Frunza. And I was going to bet Reese McKee. And then I watched how bad he is against pressure. And I went back and I was like, if Frunza goes forward, I'm betting him. And that's all he does. He goes forward almost the entire time. He's very hittable to start, but Reese is a slow starter, so he just goes forward, and I think eventually he'll break or maybe even catch Reese. So the pick is going to be Daniel Frunza. The bet is Daniel Frunza, but I can be swayed the other way. I'll definitely be watching weigh-ins for this one. Next fight of the night, we have the biggest favorite on the card. We have minus 1,000 Dione Barbosa taking on plus 675 Diana Belbita. Over under set at 2.5. Basically a pick 'em. Over 2.5 minus 120, under 2.5 minus 110. Obviously, we need to start with the major favorite here in Diana Barbosa. Dione Barbosa is on paper world class. She has a BJJ black belt. She has a wrestling background. She has good wrestling. Her striking's good. I actually don't think it's bad. Some people think it's really good. Some people think it's really bad. I think it's adequate in all honesty, but she is athletic and she hits hard when she throws. The problem is it's not a lot. She's very low volume. And for someone with a wrestling background, her takedown defense is not great. She's rocking a 42% takedown defense. A lot of that was Diana Maverick, but in the same breath, why was Diana Maverick taking you down so much? So small sample size, but someone that isn't known for being the greatest wrestler taking you down multiple times is not a good look. She's just freakishly strong and athletic in there. She's just an athlete. That's a note I have next to her name. She is an absolute workhorse and an athlete. Um, Belbita essentially fights this. We talked about Alan Carr and God, who was Alan Carr fighting? You talked about Alan Carr and Vanessa Demopoulos, how she fought Jacqueline and Alan Carr and Jacqueline are the same thing. Belbita and Ernesta are basically the same thing, and Barbosa fought Ernesta Kutinskaya 2 fights ago, and she was able to win a split. It was she was able to win. It was a unanimous decision, but it was very close. So I anticipate this one being close as well. However, Belbita's just not mentally there. She keeps talking about wanting to retire and opening a new gym and everything like that. We just saw her not just taking down my Meatball Molly. Meatball Molly picked her up and threw her across the octagon and then armbarred her. That was not a good look at all, especially because Meatball Molly has been struggling as of late. Belbita's 28. She has an inch and a half reach advantage, which is awesome. She has good striking. I will say the striking's probably a wash. That's awesome. Everything is great there. High volume definitely favors her. She's hittable. So is Barbosa. It doesn't matter. Until you look at everything else. Takedown defense, 65%. Takedown defense is not a good percentage against Dione, and her jiu-jitsu's ass. And that's not good going against a BJJ black belt. So you have a girl that has good wrestling, world-class jiu-jitsu, going against a girl with no ground game and 60% takedown defense. It's not a good look. She just does the same combo over and over and over again. If Diane picks up on it, Belbita's screwed. Her wins are awful. She beat Hannah Goldie and yeah, in the UFC she beat Hannah Goldie and Maria Oliveira. Two of the worst signings the UFC has ever had. Her losses to Meepo Mali, Luana, uh, Gloria De Paula, like some of these girls got cut. Like Jojoa got cut. Molly retired. Gloria got cut. Carolina retired. Yeah, none of these are good. None of these are good at all. She has no good UFC wins. She's just very physically weak out there as well, and it is not good going against an athlete. So I spent way too much time on this. You can't bet it at -1,000. If you want to touch the over under, you can, because I like the under at -110. But the last time I checked, it was steamed to 130. It's probably like -150 by now. So if you're gonna get in on the under, get in on it now before the line is too wide. So the pick is Dione. The bet is going to be the under 2.5. Next fight of the night, we have our first dog. We have Dangerous Davy Grant at plus 130 going up against Daniel Santos at -150. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 -190. Under 2.5 at plus 145. This fight's an absolute banger. I love both of these guys. Let's start with Dangerous Davy Grant. Davy Grant's a 39-year-old chef from Great Britain. That's what he is. But he is a 38 or a 39-year-old chef from Great Britain with an attitude. This guy brings it each and every time he's in the octagon. He's gonna have a 2-inch reach advantage, and this guy's a wonderful striker. You saw him going tit for tat with Jonathan Martinez, with Marlon Vera multiple times, with Adrian Yanez, with Tamaris, what's his name? Ramon Tavares in his last fight, like Daniel Marcos. All these guys are really, really, really good strikers, and he is either winning or losing split decisions. They are razor close. He has good striking, he has good cardio. If you really want to beat him, you take him down. He has 61% takedown defense. That's not great. But he's 39 years old. Eventually, his chin is going to start to go, and we do see it cracking. He got dropped in a lot of his fights. The Tavares fight, he got rocked. In the Daniel Marcos fight, he got dropped. To Sun Tzu, he got rocked. So his last, like, 4 fights in the UFC, he's been rocked or dropped in all four. So that is very, very concerning, especially because he keeps his hands super, super low. That's just how he's comfortable. That's how he fights. So if you're getting chin checked and keep your hands low, that's not great. Um, but at the end of the day, his jiu-jitsu's okay as well. He's good if it's on the ground. He's good if it's on the feet, and he has the cardio to back it up. On the other side, we have Wiley Cat, I think his name is, and Daniel Santos. I absolutely adore this guy, but it's weird that we haven't seen him in 2 years. I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know if he's just been training. I have no idea what he's been doing, but we have not seen him in 2 years. So if ring rust is a thing, he's in trouble. He's 11-2, and he has really good striking. He has great jiu-jitsu. Just got promoted to BJJ black belt, but just good. That means he may come out here and wrestle, and he does sprinkle in takedowns here and there. He is not Jordan Burroughs out there, but he has a nice little double on him, and he'll take down an opponent once or twice per fight. He's extremely hittable when he is on the feet, though. That's not good. He's durable, but he can be chin checked. I've seen him absolutely floored where he was out before. The ref didn't stop it, and he recovered and came back too and kept fighting on more than one occasion. So just keep an eye on him if it's a good or bad ref, because he literally got KO'd his last UFC fight and woke up and I got, or was it his last one? His second to last UFC fight with Daniel Santos, and then Daniel Santos with Sexy Mexi ultimately got back up and won the fight. He has a whole bunch of heart. He's from shoot box. They all fight the same. They all dye their hair blonde, and they all have heart. And that's a thing that is just willing his way through the UFC. But I don't know if enough heart is good enough against dangerous Davy Grant. That's a dangerous proposition. For that, I thought it was a dog or pass situation. And when you look at the lines, Davy Grant's a dog. So the pick is going to be Davy Grant. The bet is going to be Davy Grant. Next fight of the night, we have Luis Gurel at minus 235 going up against Ode Osborne at plus 195. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 125. Under 2.5 at minus 105. Let's start with Luis. He's the UFC newcomer in this matchup. He has good striking. He loves to rip to the body, which is important here. He's good jiu-jitsu. He has really good wrestling, really good takedown defense. He can go hard 15 minutes. He has a lot of title fights over on the regional scene. So he's gone 5 minutes before. So his cardio's good. His wrestling's good. His striking's good. His jiu-jitsu is pretty good. He trains with my boy, Brandon Royval. You cannot be training with a better person here. He's very, very calm. It's one of those fighters where they're out there, kind of like a David Onama, where like things are high pressure situations. In the Contender Series, he got backpacked, and Nick Piccinini had a rear naked choke in, and he didn't panic. He didn't freak out. He stayed calm. Ultimately, got the wrist off of his neck, spun in, and got top control. Like he just stayed calm. There's a calmness to him, and that's something that's not usual in these debuting fighters. When he does hit down to the ground, he scrambles a ton. I wish he wrestled more. He's a D2 wrestler and he shows good takedown defense. But I wish that he offensively wrestled more. Maybe it makes him get tired. I have no idea. But ultimately, he's good, man. He's okay. He will move backwards, but again, he's ripping to the body, so that's perfectly fine. On the other side, we have a man that you absolutely cannot trust in Ode Osborne. He has all the talent in the world. He just can't seem to put it together. He's 33 years old now. He has good striking. He has good jiu-jitsu. He has okay wrestling. All of that is like, well, what's he bad at? Well, his chin's not good at all. He's been knocked out multiple times and early. And his cardio's not good. He gassed in the CJ Vergara fight. He gassed in the Lazy Boy fight. He gassed in the Charles Jourdain fight or Charles Johnson fight. All of those are matchups that he could have potentially won and ultimately lost because of his cardio. And I know I had money on him on all those fights. Yeah, I don't know. He's good everywhere. Just the things you really want are good cardio and a good chin. Those are the main two things you want in a fighter, and he has neither. He starts really, really, really fast. He's another one that always wins round one, and then he fades. He has good recovery. Seeing that he'll be gassed, he'll go to his corner. They'll give instructions. He'll come back and he looks rejuvenated and refreshed for about 2 minutes. And then he gasses out and then he has to recharge his battery in between the next round. It's weird. He keeps doing it. I'll just say recharges the battery. That he has nothing left. He gets a little minute break and he is back and cracking. So that's pretty interesting cat. He's extremely hittable when he's on the feet, though. Level of competition is much better than Lewis. But Lewis could, I think that the jiu-jitsu is a wash. I think that the striking is a wash. I think that the wrestling is definitely on Lewis's side. And then I think the cardio is definitely on Lewis's side. I think the durability is definitely on Lewis's side. So after all of that, initially when I was going to just pass altogether, it would behoove me not to bet a raw dogger. I'm going to bet Luis Guerrero, and I'm going to pick and bet Luis Guerrero. Next fight of the night, we have the main event. We have Robert Valentine at plus 195 or plus 200 now. Sorry, going up against Torres Finney at minus 240. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 plus 140. Under 2.5 minus 185. Let's just start with Torres Finney. How can you not? Torres Finney has no neck, no neck at all. He's just a little 5'6" ball of muscle. He has good wrestling. That's about it. His jiu-jitsu is not great. He has one sub win on his record, and it was against an absolute bum. His submission game is not great. His striking is not great. He'll show a few knockouts on the US on his record, but all those are prior to the UFC. He fights lower level competition. He can do that. If he fights actual fighters, it's not going to work that way. Again, he has good striking. Or sorry, he has good wrestling. His striking is a work in progress. His jiu-jitsu is a work in progress. His cardio is a work in progress. Basically, everything's a work in progress. It's gonna be like that a T-Bay guy from last week that came in. Yeah, he can starch anyone in round one, but if he doesn't get him out of there, he's in trouble. Well, he did. He went out there and he got the round one KO. And I think that's what's going to happen with not Finney. I don't think he's going to get the job done, actually. I just keep going back and forth. I can't figure it out because you don't want to fade bad with bad. But Robert Valentin is not good. Robert Valentin is 30 years old. He'll have an inch and a half reach advantage, which is nice. He has good jiu-jitsu. His striking's okay. It's not great, but he hits hard. His wrestling is not good at all. His takedown defense is not good at all. So it is Finney that'll probably dictate where this fight is going, but I don't think he can lay and pray with Valentin. Valentin throws elbows off his back. He throws up nonstop submissions. He is an active guard. He has a definition of position over submission. If you take him down, which is likely, he is going to make you regret it. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm going back and forth, and right now I'm just gonna have to lead with the plus money. So the pick is gonna be Finney. The bet's gonna be Valentine. No confidence. Both these guys suck. Both these guys need cut, but they're fighting each other, so you have to pick a side. Give me the plus money. Next fight of the night, we have GM3 Gerald Meerschaert at plus 205 going up against Brad Tavares at minus 245. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 210. Under 2.5 at plus 160. Let's start with GM3 Gerald Meerschaert. GM3 is 37 years old. He'll have a 3.5 at reach advantage, which is nice. He has world class jiu-jitsu and that's where it stops. His wrestling's not good. His striking is not good. He is notorious for having a bad chin. He does not have cardio. He slows down in all of his fights. He's extremely hittable when he's on the feet. There's a lot to not like about him, but he has the most sub wins in UFC history. So there's also a lot to like about him. His jiu-jitsu is very opportunistic. He loses a ton of rounds and then comes back and get the win. He did it against Makhmud Muradov. He did it against Bruno Silva. He did it against R- Rainer Denier. He did it against Edmund Shabazian. He's just doing it to everyone. Christoph Jocko, where he lost the first round and then he came back and looked much better on round three or round two because he did kind of save what he's able to do. He gets rocked, he gets hurt, you get tired from beating his ass, and then he takes over. That's what he does every time. It's a little bit of a rope it up situation on his end. On the other side, we have GM3. And the reason I don't think it's going to work here is because GM3 doesn't have an offensive striking game at all. He has great jujitsu. But again, 37 years old for, sorry, I am so sorry. I am exhausted if you can't tell. Brad Tavares, we went over GM3. He sucks. GM3 sucks. Brad Tavares, on the other hand, I'm sorry, is also 37 years old. He has good striking. He has good cardio. He has 80% takedown defense. He has okay jiu-jitsu. He's never been submitted. GM3 is definitely the best jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's fought a good level of competition. He's a definition of a gatekeeper, but he's 37 years old. His chin is leaving. In his last fight, you see his cardio slow down. And his last two fights, we've seen him getting taken down. Now, he has great takedown defense. He's had 80% takedown defense, and he's been in the UFC since like 2011. So he's been in the UFC for 15 years now and has 80% takedown defense. That's impeccable. But it's starting to show its ugly head like it did when he first started, how it is now, just because of his age, just his muscle. He's not fast twitch anymore. He's just not as quick. He's not as proficient. He's not able to do what he used to do. But I think he has enough to get rid of GM3. GM3 is not a good wrestler. Brad, easier to take down. Can GM3 do it? No. So, and if he has to stand with Brad, Brad's a little pillow fisted, but he should outwork GM3 on the feet. So the pick is going to be Brad Tavares. The bet's going to be Brad Tavares. I don't even know what I said for GM3. I'm so exhausted. Next fight of the night, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu, minus 310, going up against Martin Buday at plus 255. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 plus 100. Under 2.5 minus 130. Let's start with Kennedy Nzechukwu. We have a light heavyweight that's now up at heavyweight. He said the weight cuts were too much, and you know what? That's okay because he's a massive guy. Even though he's coming up a weight class, he'll have a 6 inch reach advantage. He has good striking. He has good jiu-jitsu. His cardio is okay. Level of competition is pretty decent. His volume is very high. 81% takedown defense. You're asking, what do you not like about him? He plays with his food a lot. Like he goes out there and he keeps his hands real low. He'll hit you with a two piece and then start dancing or taunting. And he kind of hypes himself up in the middle of the fight. And this is very, very frustrating to watch, especially when he's doing that and he's losing fights like the OSP fight. Stop celebrating and stop being cocky in there in a close fight. Like literally just go out there and hurt the guy. But he's too in his own head and just feeling like he's doing great. And then when they read the scorecards and someone else wins around, he gets all confused. I don't know. He just plays around too much out there, and he's small. And he's chinny. He does not have the best chin. Even at 205, he kept getting knocked out. Is he super chinny, or is it just he was cutting down way too much weight to make 205? He was compromised and he's getting taken advantage of? Possibly. But at the same breath, now, although he's not cutting weight, he's fighting boys that are 60 pounds more, and they hit a lot harder. So if you were chinny at 205, I don't know how I feel about the move up to heavyweight. Other ones like 135 to 145, yeah, maybe it's more beneficial and better for you. But from 205 to 266, that's concerning. If you already have bad durability, those 266-pound guys can put you out, which Martin is. Martin's going to tip that scale. He's 33 years old, but he's not very good. His striking's okay. His wrestling's awful. He just holds you up against the cage in dirty boxes, Randy Couture style, for 15 straight minutes. His jiu-jitsu's not great. I want to say he's a black belt, but like one of those fishy, questionable black belts. I mean, Powhatan is a black belt for fuck's sake, and he can't even spell BJJ. Um, I don't know, man. This kind of reminds me of the Bresky fight. Bresky was someone that should probably be fighting at 205. He's long, he's skinny, and he went out there and put a clinic on Martin Buday. I know that they ultimately gave Martin Buday the split decision win, but I don't really know how. I had a lot of money on Martin Buday, and I appreciate it, but Bresky won that fight. Like, hands down, I have no idea how Buday won it. And they're not going to make the same mistake twice. I think Kennedy goes out there. I don't think he finishes him. I think he gets the job done. Martin does move forward, but he's just so slow and lumbering. Kennedy coming up from 205 is going to be so quick. I think it's going to be too much. So the pick is going to be Kennedy. The bet is going to be Kennedy and Chico. Next fight of the night, we have Cortavius Ramius at plus 120 going up against Chang Ho Lee at minus 140. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 190. Under 2.5 at plus 145. Let's start with Cortavius. Cortavius has a good armbar. That's about it. His jiu-jitsu's all right. His wrestling's all right. His striking's all right. He does a lot of stuff because he's so athletic. Dana White called him the biggest athlete in the UFC. Probably not true, but the dude is uber athletic. It's just a matter of how he can truly use it. He's a little chinny. He's been dropped multiple times. In his first contender series fight, he was knocked out in 20 seconds by Tavares. So he's a little chinny. He will slow down in his fights with all of that muscle and explosion. It does leave an impact in regards to cardio. So he will slow down. He won't give up on himself, but he'll slow down. He usually carries very, very low volume when he is on the feet. Um, but he's another one like Ode where he'll go back into his corner and he'll recharge and come back rejuvenated. You're not going to see that from Lee, but Lee, you will probably just see a good gas tank overall. Lee's 30 years old, coming off of road to UFC. He's 10-1. He has okay wrestling, okay striking, okay BJJ. He's the definition of a generalist. He has 38% takedown defense. That's concerning. Calls himself like the Asian Habib. You can't be with 32% takedown defense. Very, very weird. Um, He's very, very scrappy, but he's sloppy. He does everything wrong. Even when he's on top, he's a guy that is position over submission. He'll go for an arm bar and give up his back. Like he's in it to win it, man. He will go for it from the moment, not even for the belt. The moment he sees you, he is going. And he is not stopping until you tell him to. Like that's how much cardio and energy this guy has. And that's the best part of his game, in all honesty, his cardio. His wrestling, striking, jiu-jitsu, none of it's that good. We see him in a lot of bad situations, but he ultimately has round three finishes, split decision wins, because his cardio is so good. He weaponizes his cardio. He has more than one round three finish, multiple decision wins, and he's just going to grind you out until you can't take any more or until the judges decide. So I was going to lean Lee. However, that takedown defense, 38% is too much to ignore. Romeo should be much stronger. A lot of people in this region of the world don't cut a lot of weight. So if he has someone twice his size who's the better wrestler, better BJJ guy, I'm going to have to side with that. So the pick is going to be Ramius. The bet is going to be Ramius. And that takes us to the main event of the evening. We have Joe Anderson Brito at minus 220, 235, put up against Pat Sabatini at plus 200. Over under set at 2.5, over 2.5 plus 120, under 2.5 at minus 155. Let's start with Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini is a really, really, really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's world class on the ground. His wrestling's okay. He did wrestle D1. It's okay. It's not good. It's not bad. It's serviceable. And it does accompany his BJJ, which he needs because he can't strike to save his life. And part of the reason is because he has one of the worst chins I've ever seen. If you tap this guy's chin, he just goes out. So do be concerned about that. His cardio, not great. He slows down in all his fights. He looks okay in like the Gavin Tucker fight going 15 minutes where he can wrestle you and take deep breaths while he just has his body triangle on, just riding you out. He can look like he has okay cardio at those, but if you're making him work nonstop, if he gets a takedown and you get back up, that's bad news for Pat Sabatini. He's extremely low volume. He just plays everything safe. If you're looking for a safe bet, I totally get it. But I'm looking for a winning bet, which is why I'm going to go over on the Brito side. Brito is 30 years old. He's going to have good striking, good BJJ, okay wrestling. His level competition's pretty good fighting. Excuse me, Bill Algeo, fighting JSP, William Gomi. All these guys have winning records. Jack Shore. Um, his cardio, he can go for a solid 10 minutes, then he will slow down that last five. But he has 72% takedown defense, so that's important with Sabatini. He wants to grapple, wants to get you down and take your back. Um, all of his subs are chokes though, and that's pretty interesting. He has a few ninja chokes. He has some rear naked chokes. He's just not very like you don't really have to be scared of him throwing an arm bar up or a knee bar or anything like that. If Pat somehow gets taken down, know he's doing something for your neck. Or if he takes him down, be safe, keep him down, and if he starts to build up, know that he's going for your neck. As long as Pat is smart, he wins this fight. But at the same breath, Brito has the better chin. He hits extremely hard. He does have the death touch, and Pat Sabatini can't take a strike. That's a bad combo. Also, just Pat Sabatini is summer boss. That's basically all he has. I don't like these odds at all. But at the end of the day, I'll have to side with the guy with more ways to win, and that's Brito. So the pick is going to be Joe Anderson, Brito. The bet for now is Brito, but that is subject to change. I do have my eye on Pat Sabatini. I'll have to do a little bit more research. And that takes us to the main event. If you haven't already smash the like button, give a follow over on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever there's social media. There's a Stat to Stacks podcast. We have Josh Emmett at plus 260 going up against Lerone the Miracle Murphy at minus 320. Over under set at 2.5. Or sorry, 4.5. Over 4.5 minus 170. Under 4.5 at plus 130. Let's start with Lerone Murphy. I mean, it's going to be annoying. You're going to hear about them talking about it time and time again. Well, this guy has been shot in the face, and he's still here and doing great things. They're going to talk about and harp on him getting shot. They always do. But I think that bullet did more damage than people give it credit because he's a little chinny now. Maybe he wasn't prior to the shooting, but he's chinny now. He gets cracked a lot. Yeah, Ige cracked him. Um, He's the what's his name? Gabriel Santos cracked him. Josh Cooleybow cracked him. He's been rocked in almost every single one of his fights. Even Edson Barbosa. So the last four fights, yeah, the last four fights, he's 4-0, but he got cracked, and ultimately could have got finished in all four. So be weary of that. Outside of his bad durability, he does have really good striking. He does throw an okay volume. It's generally low, but his last main event, he did throw like two over 200 significant strikes. Over 3.5 at reach advantage, which is nice for him. He's 33, so he's not in his prime, but he's leaving his prime. He hasn't left yet. He's 15 0-1. He hasn't lost yet. And ultimately, his striking's okay and improved. His jiu-jitsu is okay and improved. And his striking is always good. Um, but he will fluctuate and put a lot of volume out there, which is nice. 48% takedown defense is also not good, especially going against Emmett, who is a wrestler on paper. But in actuality, he has not shot a takedown in a very, very, very long time. He's kind of like a Justin Gaethje in that sense, where they use their wrestling to stay on the feet so that they can strike. They are world class. They are former D1 wrestlers, and they don't use it. They use it to counter grapple. He will stay on his feet, so then he can crack you with one of these overhands and put you away. And he can. Power is the last thing to go, and Josh Emmett is 40, so a lot has left, but he does still have his power, which is why I'm looking at that under. He has good cardio, he has good striking, a ton of power in both hands. He has good wrestling, like I said, but 46% takedown defense. That is on a small sample size, so I don't know if you really want to trust those stats. I mean, Shane Burgos struck the whole time. Bryce Mitchell didn't stand a chance. Ilya Taporia took him down three times, so that's Ilya Taporia. Yair Rodriguez got those body shot finishes and then the triangle. Calvin Cater, Danny Gage, Shane Burgos. He hasn't fought anyone that wrestles since 2019. They don't. I mean, they, I don't know. These people aren't even shooting takedowns on him. But it is what it is. Whatever. Too much time on that. He's not the greatest striker, but he's okay. But he hits extremely, extremely hard. Like he hits really, really, really hard and can put anyone out. And he himself is calling that he's going to get the knockout here. And Murphy already has a bad chin. Um, his level of competition's good. He fought for a title at one point. He didn't win it, but at the end of the day, he is a good fighter. He's just old as dirt. But I'll go ahead and I'll think he'll get one more. So far, all these cards, an undefeated fighter has lost. I have a lot of money on Luis, so it's not going to be him. Hopefully, knock on wood. It could potentially be Lerone Murphy. It could potentially be Torres Finney. If I had to guess anyone, we have Lerone Murphy going against one of the hardest power punchers in the hardest power puncher in the weight class. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say he's the one that fucks it up. So the pick is going to be Josh Emmett, and the bet is going to be 40-year-old Josh Emmett. And that's UFC Vegas 105. If you're still here, thank you so much. Again, I'm feeling a little under the weather, filming this super, super late, not in our same location. Rambled a little bit, absolutely exhausted, and lost my place a few times along the way. But it is what it is. We're not going to not put the podcast out here. And for the ones where I was awake and not falling over, I swear I'm not on any drugs or anything like that. I am just that tired. But we are able to get through all 13, and we are excited to make some money on Saturday. Let's get after it.